Hello, this is Pradeep Kumar Sahu. So today we'll discuss an interesting topic, and the title of the topic that is content and language integrated learning in writing context, an empirical study. So language, it can be learned in different ways. Anyway, so while acquiring any particular language, so first of all, usually the listening skill that is followed, and this listening skill that is followed by speaking, next reading, and at the end writing skill comes. So here we'll discuss about how the content can be delivered using a language, and if content and language both these things can be taught, similarly can be comprehensible, then the whole context becomes more interesting. The content can be taught or can be delivered using any language. And of course, while delivering the content teacher may not be aware of all the linguistic aspects. Whereas, whenever the language teacher delivers that content, and of course, the language teacher becomes more conscious of the language aspect for that content. And if both these things are integrated, then the whole context is of course really more interesting for the learners. And here we will discuss with specific reference to writing skill. See, writing skill, in my opinion, is the most important skill among all the four basic language skills, because it records the whole thing, and the whole recorded part that is available everywhere. And here the whole study is about this content and language integrated learning. So the contents here for the whole presentation is like this. So the first slide, so that is related to the introduction to the topic. Next is content and CLIL, a role of second language acquisition, a role of SLA, next research problem, and this is followed by methodology. Next comes data analysis, which is followed by outcome. Next, implications of the study, and finally references. So we can introduce the whole thing, so that is this language and content in different ways as for the different writers. You take the case of Bhaspur et al. In 2012 opined that written texts show active language use on the part of the second language user in all its facets, including the use of vocabulary, idioms, verb tenses, sentence constructions, and errors. So a written text, whenever a written text, it shows that active language use, because you see in written part the whole recorded part that becomes available. So that's why the language can be, or we can say the language is actively used there in that written text. And here the use of any language on part of the second language user, if we analyze, or we can if we analyze the second language and foreign language, similarly mother tongue, first language, so in different ways that this can be interpreted. And of course we are all aware of the fact that second language is different from foreign language in one way. Like the second language, it is used, normally it is used for public use and for all this type of meaning in day-to-day life, or let us say in day-to-day communication, second language that is followed. But the foreign language, in a special environment or in a special context, this foreign language that is used. You take the case of English in Indian context. So this can be treated as the second language. Whereas the learners do to learn maybe French, German, Spanish, and all other different type of language which is followed there in other countries may be treated as the foreign language. So there is a difference between second language and foreign language. And here we can treat this second language as the target language in this context. So the written in the all these written texts, the language that is actively used on the part of the second language user. So including, so here vocabulary and the idiomatic use of the language, and similarly others items like the grammar, or let us say you can say that is verb, tenses, sentence constructions, etc. So these are properly followed there. Next we can quote West in 1993 opined that the development of use-oriented second and foreign language skills. This can be categorized under that CLIL. So here you see the development of use-oriented second language. So how the second language that is used, or let us say yes, how that is, or which one is the context, or where we can use this second language and where we can use that foreign language skills. And of course for all the languages the four basic skills are there. And here, so the development of this use oriented of these two categories of language may be treated under that CLIL. And Mars and Lang in 2000, they have opined any educational situation in which an additional language, and therefore not the most widely used language of the environment, is used for the teaching and learning of subjects other than the language itself. So here, which is not, so this is an additional language, and this is not the most widely used language you can say, or you can take the case of any foreign language of that environment. So this is used for the teaching and learning of subjects. So here meaning the content that is taught, at the same time we are using, or let us say the that is you see the language that is learned, meaning both these things it happens at the same place. Next, Brinton et al. In 1989 opined that the target language as the vehicle through which the subject matter content is learned rather than as the immediate object of study. So here, the target language, you take that case of suppose English, that is the target language. For us Indians, English is treated as the second language. So let's call it as the target language. And the target language is used as the vehicle, or this is used as the instrument using which or through which the whole subject matter that is learned rather than as the immediate object of the study. So the whole target language, meaning using the target language or using English, you can say we use that. Sorry, we learn that subject. You take the case of suppose let us say the thermodynamics teacher, and whenever the teacher teaches the concept of thermodynamics, or maybe that is heat transfer and the different processes that is followed in the process of heat transfer, let's talk about that is isothermal process, adiabatic process, and how the Carnot cycle it works. And for all these things, if at all English that is used, so this is used as when English is used as the vehicle or as the instrument through which the whole subject matter about that heat transfer method or that thermodynamics, the concept of thermodynamics that is taught. So here, without focusing on the different aspects of the language, however, if the teacher becomes more conscious of, are more conscious about the use of the different aspects of the language, things becomes more interesting and the learners reap more benefit out of that. Because at the same time, thermodynamics, so that is discussed, and the different aspects of language are properly followed, or let us say the students can learn both these things at the same time. So here the selection of the task, that is the most important part. So what should be taught and how to find out, or how to yes, pick up that meaning the suitable, or the one can say that is the most appropriate things or the tasks that is to be shared with the learners or the students, you can say. So which is apt for the learners. So and the teacher must be aware of the background of the students. Background, I mean to say that, so that is the educational background, economical background, social background, all these things that must be yes, that must be intimated to the teacher, or the teacher should be aware of all these things, because based on this, particularly based on the educational background of the learner, the selection of the task that must be given, that must be provided to them, so that it becomes easier in their part to follow the concept as well as the language. Because you see, so whenever the communication takes place based on the information gap principle, the whole teaching, it becomes more interesting, or the whole communication process becomes more interesting and more effective, you can say. Similarly, so let's, what we teach in any kind of content based course is not the content itself, but some form of the discourse of that content. And this is opined by SK in 1997. So when we teach in any kind of content based course, is not the content itself, but some form of the discourse of that content. So what is around this, or what is the discourse, and how that is to be taught? Similarly, again is in 1994 we find that content need to be academic. It can include any topic, theme, or non-language issue of interest or importance to the learner. So this content that can be, it must be at that, yes, that should be academic one. So it can include any topic, any theme, or non-language issue of that interest or importance to the learner, because that must be, or the learner must feel interested to go through that. Christ in 2000 opined in CLIL content subjects related to intercultural learning takes place. So in that CLIL content, the subject related to that intercultural learning takes place. So here, whenever we talk about that culture, so here next to language, so many other factors are there. And here especially we will focus on this language part. Similarly, learners develop more accurate academic concepts when another language is involved. So whenever a new language, next to that vernacular language, or next to mother tongue you can say, or next to first language you can say, so whenever another language that is involved for elaborating, or for for elaborating the concept, so the learners, they become, or they develop more accurate academic concepts. Okay, next we'll discuss about how the learners become more successful. They are more successful and more motivated than those in traditional content subject classrooms. So whenever something new, so change that must be there, and whenever there is some change, the learners become more interested. We have to break that stereotypes, and in fact the learners, they love to break that stereotypes, and whenever, and they feel more successful and more motivated than the traditional content there in those subject classrooms. And if that is taught in a different way, like suppose let us say in a practical point, meaning from practical point of view, or let us say in a practical environment, and whenever the discourse must be that is related to those practical classrooms, especially for the engineering or maybe for the technical students, they feel more interested, and here at the same time they learn the language also effectively. Learners look at content from a different and broader perspective when it is taught in another language. That's important here. And yes, the same person, that is Wolf, mentioned it in 2004. So the learners look at the content from a different and broader perspective, the same content that is there. And whenever that is taught in another language, next to that, next to mother tongue you can say, or even first language you can say. Of course, we are all aware of the difference between that mother tongue and first language. Some people they take it synonymously, but in all the cases that may not be the same. Next, let's discuss about how we get the support from the second language acquisition. Krasn in 1985 find that second language acquisition is enhanced by comprehensible input. That I plus one, that everybody, the input that must be next to that input, that something else that must be there. So the second language acquisition, so this is enhanced or all the four basic language skills that are usually enhanced by that comprehensible input. So the input that must be comprehensible. Unless and otherwise the input becomes comprehensible, the learners may not feel interested to go through that. So we have to take care of this. Then CLIL promotes negotiation of meaning, which is known to enhance language acquisition. So this must be responsible, meaning this content and language integrated learning. It must be promoted, or let us say, yes, that must promote the negotiation of meaning, which is known to enhance language acquisition, or in other words, that must be comprehensible. Sorry. So, and this is opined by Light Brown and Spader in 1993. Natural language is never learnt, differs from meaning, and CLIL provides a context for meaningful communication to occur. So the natural language, whatever that is acquired, whenever, if at all that is learnt, it can't be learnt excluding its meaning or that semantic concept. So, and this CLIL, it provides an ample platform or an appropriate platform to create a context for the meaningful communication to occur. And this is opened by Curtin in 1995. Similarly, LA in 1991 opined that research on extensive reading in a second language shows that reading coherent materials leads to improved language abilities, greater content area learning, and higher motivation. So whenever a second language is reading coherent materials, so there must be coherence between the materials whatever that will be provided to the learners. So, and there must be coherence. So this coherent reading of these coherent materials, it leads to improved language abilities. That is, meaning the learner must feel to more interested towards to enhance their abilities, and here greater content area learning and higher motivation towards this. Then the statement of the research problem here, in the whole study whatever I have conducted, you see I have conducted the study on 30 BTech second year mining students. So that is their branch is mining engineering. So and the course that is BTech, so that is Bachelor in Technology in a private university in India. And the statement of the research problem is like that: is there a significant difference in writing accuracy between CLIL and non-CLIL tasks? And the second one is, what kind of errors we come across, or what kind of errors the learners they do or they make. One is morphological, lexical, spelling, punctuation, or syntactic. All these things are, so these things are more prominent. So all these things are analyzed vividly to find out, so where lies the problem and how the situation can be improved. And the methodology for this, so this is an experimental study. The whole study was based on an experiment based on 30 different students. And of course here, so 10 classes were selected. So out of these 10 classes, so each class consists of 2 hours duration. So that is 20 hours duration. Sample size that is 30, and all the students they belong to second year of BTech mining engineering. And the data collected from written composition activity completed by these 30 participants in their own classroom situation. So here both CLIL tasks and non-CLIL tasks were given to them, and they have completed these tasks based on their own potentiality. And where lies the problem? It has been analyzed here. And the tools used for the data collection are testing. So many these writing tasks, different type of writing tasks were given, and different type of, again, that is if free writing that was there, guided writing that was there, and of course creative writing that was there. Okay, so free writing, guided writing, and another one semi-guided you can also say. So we have for from CLIL and non-CLIL tasks, of course, all these things are followed. That is free and guided writing were followed for the both CLIL and non-CLIL tasks. Similarly, another a semi-structured interview that was, yes, that was administered. So while interpreting the data, I got so different type of errors. First one, that is morphological errors, mistakes related to the use of nouns, pronouns, adjectives, verbs, prepositions, and determiners, etc. So here, so that is related to the use of all these things there in their context or while preparing the writing tasks. So such type of, so after analysis, I have discovered this type of errors in their composition. Similarly, syntactic errors were also there. So that is mistakes related to the word order, use of clauses, incomplete sentences, missing constituents, and repeated constituents even. So similarly, using of cohesive devices. Okay, so next to that, if we come to that lexical errors, so that is use of that inappropriate words and phrases to that context. So whatever, so you see, the context is one thing, and here the use of those words and phrases there in that context, to some extent you can say those are inappropriate. Similarly, the use of cohesive devices also, so there is some problems related to the use of cohesive devices in both the things here. And the outcome of the study is, that is meaning a significant difference in students' performance. Okay, if we compare both CLIL and non-CLIL contexts, so there is a significant difference. Next thing is linguistic items such as grammar and vocabulary used in target language seriously affected. And of course, so what might be the reasons? Of course, what are the reasons behind this? I have discussed it there in that paper. Then CLIL, this is an approach rather than a method. And this is also, I have discussed it in a detailed manner there in the paper itself. So after the study, of course, there are implications, meaning the implications of the study are for different categories of people. That is for language teachers, for syllabus designers and material developers, similarly content teachers and learners. So there is ample scope for all these different categories of people, those who are affected by this study. So there is ample scope for a language teacher to explore the different type of tasks, and whenever similarly the same thing that is for the content teachers even. And if both these That is, content teachers and language teachers are integrated. Let us say they join their hands together, so the classroom situation becomes more effective. Similarly, so there is ample scope for the syllabus designers and material developers, and also for the learners. Okay, so for the whole preparation of this study, I have referred these people and I have mentioned it here. So yes, so that is available here, meaning I have referred these people, okay, and their studies. Thank you.